now turning it over to church revitalization in the midst of COVID-19. This is obviously the new normal for all of us, and so we look forward to hearing from Dr. Kenneth Priest. He is the director at Interim Center for Church Revitalization at SWBTS, the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and the director of convention strategies at the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention, and for some reason passed me in my last D-Min class. So thank you, Dr. Priest, one, for putting this on and kind of pushing through all of the obstacles we've had over the last few weeks and months to make this happen. And we're grateful for you and looking forward to what you have to say.
Thanks, Matt, and I appreciate you and Kyle agreeing to co-host with me and help manage the process. And definitely we want to thank all of our speakers today, and Dr. Queen just did a wonderful job. If you've not seen his book, Mobilize to Evangelize, we are excited to send you a copy. Just get that email to me with your address. We'll include that one in Dr. Hawkins' book so that you get all the resources. Also, hope you noticed in the chat function, we posted James Womack's document earlier today, and then we just posted the presentation from today. So you got everyone that had a PowerPoint presentation, you've got that available for download so that you can have the resources that you need. If there's anything we can do at the Center for Church Revitalization to assist you at Southwestern Seminary, please don't hesitate to call on us. We are here to serve churches globally through the Center for Church Revitalization in Southwestern Seminary, so don't hesitate to ask. What I wanted to do is take our closing time, and it's been a long day. We're pushing on 6 hours, about 5.5 hours right now of conversation and no breaks except for whenever each of you kind of blanked your screen and took off for your own break, or when Matt's wife brought his lunch into him. Those are the only breaks we've had. So I don't want to take much of your time, but I do want to walk through some revitalization church issues. And I've kind of categorized this. We're going to talk through each of these files that you see here. I'm going to talk about what we need to be or should be doing now, what we should be thinking about doing next, and then what we need to be thinking about beyond this down the road. So let's just kind of take each one of these one at a time. Number one, we need to make sure that we're caring for our members. This is a real important element for us to think through. Number one is prioritizing the ministry needs of your members. This should always be something that we're doing, but especially now when we don't have the opportunity to get in front of them on a regular basis, we need to be thinking about those that have the most needs, that are the highest priority for us to focus on, and determine what are their ministry needs, and let's get those in line of priority. And then we need to determine who do we have at the church that can engage with ministry. Look, pastors, you're busy, and I know you're busy. It's not up to you to do this by yourself. You need to mobilize the church to accomplish the ministry that needs to be done. As a part of that, you might consider, what could you provide? What type of protective items, masks, gloves, the little booties to cover the shoes, that you can provide those that are engaging with the ministry to help engage in ministry. Look, you've got senior adults who need groceries bought for them. Are there some younger adults that are willing and able to go buy those and take them to those senior adults? Maybe the senior adult can't lift the groceries, and so they're going to have to take it in the house. Well, you want to make sure that those young adults that are taking that in the house has got the gloves and the mask and can protect their shoes with the little foot booty things, so that they're walking in their house as clean as possible, dropping the groceries off and walking out the door. Anything you can do to care for your members this way is important. But then the second phase of this is the same for your community. You care for the community the same way. You start with the flock. You are the under shepherd of this flock, and it's your job as that under shepherd to care for this flock. But then you need to expand out, and this is the gospel opportunity of providing the same type of ministry care to the community. There are senior adults that are not engaged in church right now that your church could be ministering to. So figure out what are those priority needs and who can engage with that ministry, and then providing your members, again, with the protective items they need in order to accomplish that ministry. You have to remember, this is a volunteer ministry. They have to practice social distancing. They have to protect themselves in this, but we can't be isolated during this time. We've got to do our part and do what we can to help one another. The second element, or third element, we want to look at is the issue of finances. This is, of course, the greatest question that we're getting right now. And how are we going to continue to advance? If you pay attention to social media, to online, Sam Rayner posted some stats in the past couple of days about what the projections are from their perspective through the Rayner Group of how the decline is going to be impacted. We just hit a couple of things for you before I hit the bullets you see on there. Is number one, if you were not engaged in online giving, this was the time to start it. You're behind the curve. You should have been engaged in online giving. But that online giving ratio is really going to be a part of what determines how you're going to flow through this. But it's not just about, if you look at that, you need to look at what your cash reserves have been. Churches, some churches function without any cash reserves, especially in a revitalization context. So you have no buffer to work with. If you've got any debt in your church, that's where you're going to have the greatest concern. I'll just share with you from a consultant's perspective. I've kind of started looking at numbers over the past week and a half, and you heard Bob talk earlier about 900 churches close their door every year. And in 2017, what we saw was about 1,200 churches close their doors. We're projecting somewhere around 2 to 3% of Southern Baptist churches. So that means we're going to hitting that 1,800 or whatever churches are going to be closing their doors over the next year. A lot of that could be a result to this COVID issue that we're dealing with because churches didn't have cash reserves. We saw this coming out of the recession 2008. It took a lot of churches till 2012, 2013 to recover. So it was about a 5-year recovery process. So if we look at the 5-year recovery process now, that's going to take us into 2025 for a number of our churches. So you got to look at what you've got available in your cash reserves. If you got up to 2 months, you're still probably going to be in a crisis situation. If you have zero debt, you'll make it out a little bit better. If you have 4 to 6 months of cash reserves, you're probably going to fare okay in this. There, of course, going to be some issues that you have to address, but make sure that you're evaluating your financial position in the life of the church. One thing you want to do is provide ongoing financial reporting to the congregation. Just because you're not meeting doesn't mean you should not be communicating. You put the weekly numbers in the bulletin, how many were in worship, Sunday school, and what the total receipts were. Well, you need to be providing that same data during this crisis so that your members are seeing the issues as well. Look, if they lost their job, there's nothing they can do about it. They can't help you with the financial crunch that's coming. But for those that are still working, those that are still able, this is going to let them know where the church is and what the needs are. You want to make sure that you're offering your giving options. Continually communicate what the options are. Online giving is great. Text giving is great. But don't forget, you've got people that are going to mail the envelope in. Provide them the address. Make sure they know the address. In some cases, it may be beneficial if your church has a return address envelopes that you can provide. Make those available to your members. Mail it out to them so that they can mail in the check on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, whatever they need to do. Make sure you're giving them the options that are available in order to take care of the financial needs that you have. Reality is there's going to be some shortfalls. The projections that Rayner put out, that Sam Rayner put out is showing anywhere from 25 to 50, 60% decline in giving, depending on how long this progresses. So just know you're going to have some issues, which means you're going to have to make some hard budget cuts. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. I've seen postings on social media. We talked about this on the podcast that Matt and Kyle recorded with me earlier today, that there's some guys out there championing quit giving through your state through the cooperative program and send direct to the IMB and NAM, and let's take care of our missionaries and church planters. I want to remind you, there's church planters in your state. And if you're not sending cooperative program funds through your state, you're no longer funding giving in your state. You're no longer funding the church planters that are there in your state, and they need the assistance as well. You need to strike a balance. And part of that balance is struck by continuing to give through your state convention so that they can continue to give through the cooperative program channels, and they can take care of the planters in your state as well as those in North America, as well as the missionaries across the globe. So let's make sure that we're good stewards and we find that balance of how we can take care of us at home while we're also taking care of our missional needs that we have as churches. Next up is the issue of technology, what you should be doing now. Many of you have shifted to an online worship experience, which is great. Some of you are recording and posting them on YouTube. Some of you are going live on YouTube and live through other platforms. What I want to remind you of is you need to adjust. You heard Dr. Hemphill talk about quality earlier, and quantity follows quality. If you have a great online worship experience, then you're going to find people in the community that have been seeking a church, connecting to your church online, which one day will open the door for them to come into your church in your community if they're in your community and looking for this. So continue to adjust your worship experience online. Move to a quality experience. If you need assistance with that, man, I would encourage you to check with your state convention, Southwestern Seminary School of Music. They sent out some helps for worship and technology, media, and things. So make sure you connect with us. Let us see how we can help you to improve that. You might consider engaging in small groups online. There are Sunday school classes, small groups that are meeting through Zoom. Those are great tools. So use the tools that are available. Don't just shut down the ministries of your church, but look and see how can we get creative with the ministries of our church at a time like this. Make sure you're conducting care ministry, whether it's on the phone or doing video chats. Make sure that when you're going back and looking at caring for your members, part of the care for your members is utilize the technology you have available. Shoot text messages, sure. Send emails, that's fine, but you need to connect on the phone and on online videos, those types of things. Because of the length of time that we're going to experience with this, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is, when it's all said and done, you may have a committee meeting that needs to take place. You may have a business meeting that needs to take place. Look and see how you can use your online tools in order to conduct those meetings as well. The ministry of the church can't stop just because the church can no longer come to the building. The church is deployed in the community right now. And so a great way for us connecting is through technology. And then the final thing is to stabilize your ministry operations. What does that mean? Well, it's basically you sum up everything that we've just walked through on each of these elements, and you make sure that you're creating the best platform, the best method for you and your church to move forward at such a time as this. So stabilize the operations, make sure that you're continuing to move forward in ministry and you're doing a quality ministry. Next up is the issue of what are we supposed to do next? Well, once you've done everything on the now, you know that you're taking care of what you need to take care of and you're functioning to the best that you possibly can. We need to start looking at what's coming next, and that comes to forecasting employment of church members, forecasting employment of community. What does this mean? Well, we're looking to see who in our church has recently lost their job or is in danger of losing their job, and the impact that's going to have on them, the ministry opportunity that creates for us as a church, but yet in the midst of that, understanding we have declined giving ourselves. So how can we respond in a situation like this? But because of the loss of jobs, that means it's going to be a continued loss of income for the church as well. And therefore, you need to take into consideration your forecasting. There could be events that you've got scheduled this summer that just because COVID releases and we're able to get back to interacting in person, that may not mean you can continue with the event the way that you had it scheduled. So forecasting your employment of your members is going to help you determine, do we believe we're going to recover quickly based on the fact we had 4 months in reserve. Nobody in the church has lost their job. Therefore, we're going to expect everyone to keep giving at the same level. Things are going to be okay. We can move on business as usual. Hey, we had 0 reserve. We had 2 families lose their jobs. That means we're already in a crisis of financial situation. They're in a crisis. We need to do ministry with them. Maybe we need to cut something out that had been scheduled. Maybe we're going to downsize something that we were planning on being much bigger in order to overcome the financial burden. You also need to forecast the employment of the community. What type of jobs have been lost in the community? Because that means there's going to be community needs taking place. So the same matrix we're applying to our church, we want to take and apply that just like we did in ministering with the church and community, now forecasting with the church and community. What's happening in our community that's going to impact us for a long term? Again, I mentioned earlier, the recession of 2008, it took a number of churches. And look, I'm here in Texas, and I was doing this consulting in Texas. In 2008, the economy tanked, but we didn't get hurt as bad as other states did. But we still had churches that it took us through 2013 to recover from that. So what's going to be the recovery on this? And this kind of moves into the next one, the forecasting your financial recovery. You need to be mapping out what you believe it's going to take in order for the church to recover during this time. All of this is a part of you being able to engage in ministry, which is the next one, the projecting your re-engagement measures. How are we going to relaunch worship? Look, just because we get the clearance to go back to interact with people in person and we start having worship services, we don't need to just show up at worship on Sunday morning. We need to make an event out of this. You need to relaunch worship. You're missing Easter. You're probably missing Mother's Day. Those are two of your highest attendance Sundays of the year, and you've missed out on them. So whatever day you're able to get back into the worship center, you need to make a big deal about it. You should be building up to that during your online worship so that you're relaunching your worship service as a big event in the community. You should also be relaunching community engagement in a big way. So you've forecast out your financial recovery. You've determined fiscally what can we do as a church. How can we re-engage our community? So as soon as you get the green light, you need to be in the community, knocking on the doors, holding block parties, doing whatever you can to let the community know the church is here. We want to serve you. We've been praying for you. This is what we can do. And make sure you relaunch in-person ministry. Don't get comfortable with the fact that you've gone online. Make sure that you're using this as an opportunity to re-engage those that are out there in person to the best you can. Understanding we're probably going to relax the social distancing orders, but there's still going to be some social distancing requirements, no shaking hands, no doing things like this. And so your in-person ministry is going to slowly ramp up, but you need to make sure that you've got a presence. So make sure you make a big deal about worship, relaunch community engagement, and relaunch in-person ministry. The next deal is thinking about what's beyond this. Beyond this is you need to continue to use technology. Don't stop doing online worship. You heard Matt mention that he had 500 more than he normally has participating in his online worship than what he has showing up on Sunday morning. We're hearing this story after story. I have one church that averages 300 that had 1,300 last Sunday tag into their online worship experience. That's massive. Now look, there's a couple of factors here. The average person attends church 1 out of 5 Sundays. So if you were to take a church that averages 300, that means technically when we run all the data on them, they're actually impacting about 650 to 700 people. It's just they don't all show up on the same Sunday. So when we get all of them there on the same Sunday, they're all showing up online on the same day. But then we've got others that are seekers that are looking for places as well. They're trying to find hope, as Matt shared earlier, during a time of crisis. And so don't discontinue your technology. Add technology in, let it continue as a part of your online worship. And then the same thing for online giving. Don't say, oh, the crisis is over, we're going to do away with online giving. Many churches actually will find out if you continue online giving, you will see 60 plus 70% of your congregation will begin using online giving. And what you find out is you will increase your giving, I don't remember the number, somewhere around 25 to 30%, because the people that are not there every week will set up a habit of giving online every week. So the ones that are just bringing a check whenever they show up, you're going to get their ongoing contributions as well because they're going to set up. So make sure you continue to engage with technology. And then we need to learn from the past here. Churches didn't learn from the recession in 2008. We need to learn now. This is the days of drought. We're storing up so that we have something to eat during the days that the drought is here. So we're in that drought time. So the next time that the grass is green and the wheat's growing, we need to build up some reserves. We need to ensure that we've got enough reserves so that once we reestablish our ministry, if we have a crisis that comes again, we're prepared for it. Now, I'm going to tell you best recommendation here, 4 to 6 months of reserves. Now, we're not talking about total 4 to 6 months of your entire budget. We're talking about your fixed expenses. Make sure you have 4 to 6 months of fixed expenses in reserves, and God will honor the blessing of reserving that. There's some churches that live paycheck to paycheck, and they have this philosophy that if God gave us the money, we got to spend all of it now. That's not what God teaches us in Scripture. God teaches us to be a wise steward. We need to store up for the rainy day and make sure that we're prepared for those times. So that's my quick close down snapshot of COVID ministry amid COVID. We hope that today's session has been absolutely beneficial for you. I've enjoyed listening in to all of our presenters, share the advice that they've shared. We want you to know through the Center for Church Revitalization, we are here to serve you, the local church, to serve our pastors, to help you in any way that we can. And so if there's anything at all that we can do for you, please do not hesitate to ask. We're going to leave the function open for just a moment in case you need to run through that group chat to find any of the links that we sent out so you can get all those downloaded. My email address is on there. Don't hesitate to email me if you missed any of this. This was recorded. I'm not sure how it will be posted for you to view in the future, but it will be out there in case you missed some of the sessions. You want to go back and review. We're here to help you. Thanks for joining in. Thanks to all of our presenters. God bless you and have a great day.